here now because you brought it up. So you had a wig to begin with?
I had a wig for the first 12 episodes, yes. Basically the East Space trilogy. The minute we escape the East Space trilogy, my hair magically becomes my own.
And then it just gets longer and longer.
It does.
And then suddenly,
yeah.
Well,
I was actually under instructions to not cut it. So don't blame me if my hair looks silly, it's not my fault, I just did what John Nathan Turner told me to do. And the idea was that the makeup designer for each particular story would decide what to do with it, or as often happened, decide not to do anything with it. But that's, and then, yeah, suddenly it gets cut short in Black Orchid, doesn't it? Because the makeup woman decided that she wanted to go that way, that one. Why not?
Anyway, I don't want to talk to you about the rebound, because you're very active in the world of Doctor Who at the moment, acting in audio plays, but also you're writing.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
yes.
Before we reach them, I'm going to talk about your writing. So the first novel you wrote was quite some time ago now. You wrote Fate's Flower. This has nothing to do with Doctor Who.
No, nothing to do with Doctor Who.
You wrote our novel.
Yes.
Was it the case though that you listened? I want to try writing a book or see what happens, or did you have this idea sitting that led you to write a book, or did you think I'm going to write a book and then think about what
I was always interested in fiction. I was always interested in writing. It was the thing that I wanted to, as well as acting. I'd always wanted to write fiction, and I do take it quite seriously. I'm not, a complete dilettante about it. I do, and I got a place at a thing called the Red Loaf Writers Conference in Vermont because I lived in the States, which was founded by Robert Frost, the poet. So I was quite serious about it, but out of that, the novel of Fate Flowers. I was spending a lot of time in New York. Didn't actually live in New York, lived in New Haven, Connecticut, which is Yale, basically. It's the town, the city where Yale is. So about an hour plus, an hour and a half from New York. So I spent a lot of time in New York. I've always liked New York. So I set this novel in New York, this bizarre, dark, rather intense black comedy set in New York, which became the first of a trilogy, which I call the Minetta Lane trilogy. Anybody who has ever looked at my Twitter knows it's called at Minetta Lane, and that's the reason. Because I set this little apartment house on Minetta Lane. Minetta Lane in real life is nothing. It's basically a back alley. So I invented a street, Minetta Lane, even though it has a real name. My street is essentially invented. And this dreadful woman lives in this apartment house, and then various other people in the other novels. It was fascinating and a fascinating process. And the tones are different. So the second one's a bit sweeter. The first one's dark and intense. The second one's lighter and airier, about this sort of semi-fantasist called Florinda, who doesn't ever quite live in the real world, but somehow becomes phenomenally rich. And then the third is a series of intertwined love stories. And then a short story collection, one of which, the first story in the book Sugar, is in the Minetta Lane universe, if one could call it such a thing.
And actually Sugar, that's the book, that's not me just getting too familiar with it. Anyway, darling, but Sugar, the set so you've got one in New York, one in Brighton there, Sussex, which is your,
yes.
Your English area.
Yes.
So you're sort of covering both halves of your.
Yes.
And then you've got one set in the far future.
Yes.
And then you've got one, I can't remember the old man lives, but people.
The old man lives in an unspecified seaside town.
Yes. So it's all very your life, places from your life. You have been to the far future, you did that in Doctor Who.
Yes, well, the well to far future, yes.
But did you describe it as the future one as being your science fiction story?
Yeah, it was a go at being a sort of science fiction story. Again, it's quite dark actually, but an adult. It's very adult.
Your husband described it as something else.
What did he describe it
He
as?
described it as your porn story.
It's not actually.
If you want to read science fiction porn by you.
It's not. It is not. It's about the subject of pornography comes up, but it is not actually. Really.
I fell in love with a dead boy. Is that right?
I Fell in Love with a Dead Boy, yes, which is the title of a song by the group Anthony and the Johnsons, with Anthony Hegarty, Now I Know Me. It's a song I thought was really cool, I Fell in Love with a Dead Boy. The story has nothing to do with the song, I just really like the title, I just thought it was a really cool title. So yeah, I Fell in Love with a Dead Boy. And the title of the short story. It's a very odd song as well. It's a gorgeous song. I think it's his first ever record.
I just noticed that Sylvester McCoy's left his empty coffee cup, so we'll be auctioning that one.
Especially when you get him to sign it.
And I'll be having the money for that. Right, so bringing this back round to Doctor Who, you're the first Doctor Who fiction you wrote, unless you did any as a boy. Did you write Doctor Who stories when you were a boy?
Oh, I had a Doctor Who comic when I was a boy. I made Doctor Who comics. It was actually called Doctor Who Monthly, I think. It was much better than the real one. But it was all comic strips. Yeah, I'm going to drag them through the courts for stealing my idea. But it was all comic strips. And what it was, because it would have been the third Doctor, so I did each issue included a strip about the third Doctor, and then the first and second Doctor also had a strip. So the three, and I think it was a Dalek strip. It was really good. I just wish you could. I wish you could see it because it was so fabulous. But like all these things, like children do, I sort of got a bit fed up with it. But I think I did about 3 or 4 issues of it.
With 4 stories?
4 stories in each one, yes. I think it was 20 pages, so each story was... And it was a serial. So I thought I was very proud of my first third Doctor cliffhanger, where the TARDIS dematerialises, leaving him behind. I remember thinking, whoa, that's a great cliffhanger. I don't think as often on the show, I don't think the result of the cliffhanger was as good as the cliffhanger, which of course, as we know, happened a lot on Doctor Who. It's a great cliffhanger, and then they sort of shrug it off in the first 30 seconds. But I remember when I was 10 years old, I remember thinking, or 90, whatever I was, I remember thinking, oh, that's a good ending. That's much better than they do on the programme. But yeah, no, it's really fun. But it's probably the only difficulty was I'm not very good at drawing. So the comic strips in my head were a great deal better than the actual comic strips that ended up on the paper. And I used to trace the heads of the, those little drawings when you had stripped like a TV comic. There's a little drawing that's there every week with the title. So I used to trace like the Patrick Troughton face from TV comic would be on the Patrick Troughton strip. This is really interesting. I'm glad you came to this. And the William Hartnell one. No, because William Hartnell's face wasn't on the strip. But so I would probably just took it with Dr. Manuel or something. And then the John Pertwee one's based on probably the first TV comic head with Dr. Manuel. Yeah, very exciting it was too. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Well, I want to find
and I think I said, because in Countdown they always named the artist. The TV comic name, then the Countdown did, so it's an artist called Jerry Haylock. So I think all of mine said, Jerry Haylock. even though I did them.
Somebody else is in it, that's what happens.
Yeah, so Jerry Haylock. I don't think Jerry Haylock would be all that flattered to have his name attached to my comic strips. But I think I was the editor, though I think of editing. I think I had an editorial page where it said, "Welcome, readers. I hope you're welcome to the first issue of Doctor Who Monthly readers, and I hope you're enjoying your free badge that came with issue #1, or free mask, or whatever it was." Was it
Did you make a free mask?
Of course, if you're going to have a free gift, just make one. You can make one. You can't not have a free gift. That's not strange at all. Nigel Fair, Nigel Fair is a lovely guy. He directs a lot of stuff, and he's an actor who also writes and directs till they finish. But he had a comic. What was his comic?
Copyright Jerry.
Copyright Jerry Haylock, yes. No, I think Nigel said copyright Nigel Fair. So I think he had a more better business mind than I did, yes. Yes, but he created all sorts of characters. Because Nigel actually created characters in his comic, whereas I just ripped them off Doctor Who. But my comic was better, I'm pretty confident. So lots of kids make comics. It's not that weird, actually. And I don't think it's even weird to make the free gift. I mean, if you make a comic that's got a free gift, you're going to make the free gift, aren't you? I mean, who wouldn't?
Yes, what's stranger to make the free gift or to say, I hope you enjoyed your free gift, and not actually make one?
Yes, that would be pretty weird, wouldn't it?
Anyway, you wrote your first paid Doctor Who fiction for the Target storybook.
Target storybook, yes, it was. That lovely Steve Cole got in touch. I think because he knew I'd written fiction. I'd also written a Dark Shadows story for Big Finish, a Dark Shadows audio story. So I'd written not quite a Doctor Who story, but something in that sort of milieu style. So he knew I could write a sort of fantasy type, science fiction, horror type of story, because I'd done it for Dark Shadows. Called Old Acquaintance, set on Christmas Eve. It's very exciting.
New Year's Eve.
So, well spotted. New Year's Eve, set on New Year's Eve. Very exciting. I hope you've all heard it. If you haven't, I recommend you purchase it, but don't listen to it until New Year's Eve, because it all takes place on New Year's Eve. Rituals that really exist on New Year's Eve, like it's set in this Welsh town, and the Mary Quid is this horse-headed creature in myth that goes door to door, and it's the dead and the living meeting. It symbolizes the horse, the Mary Quid represents the dead, and on New Year's Eve, as the new year turns into the old year turns into the new, it's the one time in the year where the dead and the living can communicate with each other in old Welsh myths. So I wrote about that idea. And people would do it from town to town. You would literally go and knock on doors, and they would have to give you a drink or some food. So the group carrying the Mary Quid would go into their house and have a bite to eat and a drink. I think by the dawn of New Year's Day, I think there were quite a few drunk people in Wales because of this. Because you're getting through a lot of booze, I imagine, by the end of the day. But it was a genuine tradition. It was basically killed off by World War I, because obviously mainly the Mary Quid tradition was kept up by young men, and suddenly they weren't there. They were all off at war, and that's why the Mary Quid, the whole tradition died out. But it is, I think, it goes back quite some centuries, I think, in its original form. But yes, it's this horse-headed skull that symbolises death communicating on New Year's Eve.
They should make that available every New Year's Eve. They should just give them a little hamper.
They should, yes, a little gift to every New Year.
Here they finish like they hear. No, they'll just ask you to buy.
Actually, they're only £3 anyway, I think, because it was only a 40-minute story, so it's only cost you less than a pint of beer, I mean, honestly. So there's no excuse really not to cough up £3. It's very good anyway. It was read by David Selby, the American actor David Selby, very well to us. It's really that nice, that's very moving. When you write something, you hand it to another actor to read and hear how they interpret it. It's really actually quite lovely, that experience of your little work of art becoming somebody else's in terms of the performance and hearing their choices. And he did it really beautifully. Because I'd worked with him on one of the Dark Shadows audios in Los Angeles, so I'd met him and we got along very well. So when they asked me to write one, I thought, well, I'd definitely write for David. And I was really pleased with him.
And he's a proper lead star of Dark Shadows TV show.
Yes. He's probably best known over here for that soap opera about a winery. Fork and Crest, that's probably what he's done, which is one of those sort of Dallas type things in the mid-80s, and David was in that. I think he was quite big in that, wasn't he? So that's probably what he's best known for in Britain. But Dark Shadows was the beginning of his career. He was in it for about 4 years.
The only bit of him I've seen in Fork and Crest is that his wife dies because she goes for the swim in the swimming pool and she gets her jewellery on her thing is so big it gets caught in the grill at the bottom of the swimming pool. She can't get back up.
Oh my God!
And that's how she dies. So that's the only bit of David Selby in Crest I've ever seen.
That's ridiculous. Have you actually seen her drowning?
Seen that bit.
And he comes out and discovers her?
No, he gets told.
He gets told?
And he gets told in long shot, you don't see any slides just give me. Anyway, you go for the target storybook. He said,
yes, yes, Steve Cole said, would you like to write it? We're going to have this thing called the target storybook. And the idea was that it's not just Doctor Who stories, they're all Doctor Who stories that fit into an established episode. They're either a sequel to it, or a new scene, a new chapter of an old target book, essentially. Like Terence Dix wrote a new scene for the War Games, didn't he? Which is really interesting, because that's Terence Dix's last ever Doctor Who writing, just before he died, and he goes right back to near the beginning of his 40-plus year association with Doctor Who, which I thought was an interesting choice. Colin wrote one, and so I wrote a Fifth Doctor one, which fitted into the Visitation. I added an extra strand to the Visitation, because many people remember there's a moment where the two children zoom off by themselves. He's trying to get to London, Adric's trying to get the TARDIS to London, and they zoom off. And I thought that's an opportunity for the TARDIS to take them somewhere else for a short adventure before they manage to get back to where they were trying to do. So they leap a couple hundred years in the future and end up in the antebellum American South. It was a really fun and interesting to write.
Did he give you a sort of steerage, or did you have to sit and toss back and forward what you were thinking of doing?
No, I had to do a little outline, but apart from that, and then after I'd written the first draft, he made some suggestions. He's a very good editor. Because the thing that's a bit nerve-wracking, you think, are they going to make it bland? The worry is an editor's going to water it down or do something like that. But he didn't at all, and his suggestions definitely improved it. So he's an excellent editor. And so, yeah, so, but I was delighted to do it. And also, I was talking about, somebody else interpreting the work. I was really pleased with the little illustration that Mike Collins, the artist, who apparently drew lots and lots of Sixth Doctor comics for the Marvel comic. But anyway, he drew all each of the stories got an illustration. Like they used to have illustrations in the very early Target books. And the illustration for my story, The Dark River, I just love it. I think it's beautiful. Lovely with a steamboat exploding and the two children and the young slave that they met.
Does that actually exist? Did you get it?
Does the original drawing exist?
Or was it done on the screen, or is it not?
I assume it's original. I've never actually seen it physically, but I mean, it doesn't look like a computer thing. I think he just literally gets out pen and ink and draws it, I'm sure. I don't know, but I assume it is. I assume it exists somewhere.
You should get it.
Well, maybe Mike Collins will give it to me. For writing a story that made his illustrating job so interesting.
If the chance to do an Ian Martin had come along and you'd been actually given the chance to novelise one of your stories for Target Books, would you have been interested in doing that?
Now or then?
Whenever.
I mean,
come along at some point.
If it had come, yeah, I suppose. Not when I was 18, I wouldn't have had the courage, but at all. But I wouldn't be capable of it. But now, yeah. If somebody said do an improved novelisation of something, yeah.
So I laughed at that, but of course, if I don't like it to come across, could you do one that's worse?
Yeah, yes. We've got this novelisation. Could you make it worse? Well, that's a bit of a challenge. But yeah, no, I suppose it'd be quite fun to novelise episodes.
So Watchers was your first full-length, what do they call an audio novel?
Audio novel, yeah, 60,000 words.
What do you think you're writing for then? Because you are writing prose, but it's definite prose. Nobody's going to, because it's not printed. People aren't going to see it. They're only going to hear you as reading. So how do you think you're writing a very working play for one person, or do you think you're writing a novel?
That's very interesting. I think, well, with everything I've written, I do work aloud. So when I've written a paragraph, even if it's in fake flowers, I've actually spoken the text. I think you'd expect with an actor to think in terms of voice. And all prose has a voice, or all writers have a voice, even if it's a voice on a page. So I've always worked aloud, so it made sense when I wrote Watchers, I spoke every sentence aloud and worked out the scenes aloud. But I would have done that if it had been a printed book as well. Is it different because it isn't a printed book? I wonder that myself. I don't quite know. Would I have? I think not. I think the text that you listen to would have been the text if it had been a physical book for reading. I think. But maybe I would have changed it a little. Maybe I would have adjusted the odd sentence. It's possible. I don't know. But essentially, the book is a book. Even though it's a book you listen to, I still see it as a book. Not a play, I see it as a book.
So it's the Fourth Doctor and Adric.
Watchers is the Fourth Doctor and Adric.
Set between
Keep Trapped and Logopolis, yes.
And there's Daleks in it.
Daleks, yes.
How much of that were you actually asked? Did they say we wanted to be the Fourth Doctor and Adric?
Yes.
Did they say Daleks?
No. The only thing that David Richardson did say is that perhaps have something about entropy in it. But even that wasn't a rule, it wasn't an instruction. He said if you can get a little idea of entropy in it, that would be good. But apart from that, there was nothing. No, the Daleks actually were interesting because I just wanted to, if anybody's heard it, you'll know that there's a ship full of dead Daleks that two of the protagonists walk into and see this ship full of dead Daleks. And they're all sort of melted against the consoles. The ship itself is sort of rotted and melted, so these casings are sort of merged into the consoles through some kind of extreme heat. And that's what I wanted. But David said the problem is that to use one ship full of dead Daleks costs just as much as having a Dalek story in which they're in every scene. He says you have to give the Terry Nation State the same money. So he suggested making it Daleks. He said I was thinking of telling you to take that out. Then I thought, no, why not actually make it a Dalek story? So that was David's idea. After I'd done the first outline, make a Dalek story, which was great. I mean, it means actually get to meet the Daleks. Apparently Daleks are regarded as really hard to write, but maybe I was a bit naive because I'd never heard that, and I really quite enjoyed writing them because they're just so mean, they're just so horrible and mean, and they're horrible to each other as well as everybody else. So they are quite fun to write, and I very much enjoyed it. Yes.
And obviously, you are that.
Yes.
So does he just, if you think trying to write him, do you just find him sort of sitting in your head? Is he someone who lives with you?
No, I very much see him and all of them as fictional characters. So I'm not thinking about myself. If the scenes with Adric, I'm not trying to give myself all the good scenes. I'm not, trying. Oh, that's the most interesting thing in it, so I'll give it to Adric. I really do treat him like a fictional character, as they all are. I try not to get in the way of it. But of course, I played him on and off for over 40 years, so I know a lot about him. And I know a lot about Nissa because I've been in studios with Sarah playing Nissa on and off for 40 plus years. So both characters have been around for a long time. So I feel I know something about them. And the challenge with that actually is to enrich them and make them a bit more complex, but while always keeping them absolutely familiar. So I feel very much that both Adric and Nissa are the children from the show. But I haven't had to recreate them at all. That everything they do in these novels I can justify from the actual episode, or my memories of the episodes anyway. And that because I wanted the characters to be right in that sense. But just to make their friendship a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced.
That's just the minute in the Capitol. You and Sarah were on stage together, and you were talking about the next novel, which we're talking about. You said, and this is in it. And Sarah said, am I doing this? And you went, no. I'll be playing this. She went, what? She was really interested in it all as a concept, but she got slightly defensive about it. But that's me. That's mine.
Well, I know it's a tough old world of audiobooks. We can't all read them. We can't have them all come to read their characters, can we? Then we'd have to have Janet coming in and reading Tegan. That'd be a total nightmare. So I'm afraid I get to read them all. I have to do the improved version of the Fifth Doctor. It's all down to me, really. I'm only joking. One can't improve on the Fifth Doctor much. That's a joke. That's comedy. It's comedy. I was looking at it for comedy.
It's a bit of banter.
Big banter, yes. Banter.
Well, actually, I was going to ask you about the Fourth Doctor, because it's just the double act and watches.
Yes, it is. It's Adric and the Doctor. The Fourth Doctor and Adric, I suppose.
When you come to write the Fourth Doctor, what do you latch onto? Is it Tom's performance? Because obviously you're going to be reading the lines. So do you latch onto Tom, or do you?
That's very initially. No, I try not to. I was really interested to discover a while ago that Georges Simenon, the creator of Maigret, who wrote about Maigret across 5 decades, he wrote 75 novels. For Georges Simenon, Maigret never had a face. He said all the other characters had faces, but not him. He's a government functionary, an investigator. He's a bulk, he's a shape in the room, he's a presence. But he didn't have a face. And I was thinking about that, and I realised that in a strange way, the Doctor doesn't have a face, because by having 7 faces in the original series, it's almost the same as not having a face, because you have to write the same character. If you're writing Patrick or John or Sylvester, it is actually the same character. And the character is basically, if you remove the science fiction elements, the character's an investigator. That's what the Doctor actually does when he lands on a planet. He investigates something, he encounters a problem, which through his intellect he solves. He solves it through his intellect, of course, because in Doctor Who, none of the regular characters have weapons. They're not the military, they're not policemen. They're just people with nothing but the clothes they're wearing. So it has to be his intellect. But he is basically a form of science fiction investigator. That's what he does. So initially I sort of thought it was interesting to see the Doctor as slightly a blank in that way, slightly faceless. And then later on, I just put in a bit of Tommy bits and a bit of Peter bits. But initially you have to remember that on classic Doctor Who, the Doctor is theoretically the same character.
And that is actually absolutely true. I think there's loads of examples of it. Say something like John Pertwee's first season. There's loads of scenes of him barging in and being, I am arrogant and the hero and I am. But if you actually listen to the lines, Patrick Taupin could deliver every single one of them. Completely standing in the corner of the room and going, oh, never playing us up today, Professor, with his pep right in the man's face saying it. But the lines don't need change.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. When I did a behind the sofa with where I watched Colin and Nicola in some scenes, and I was thinking that could be Peter and Janet. It really, you wouldn't actually change a line if it had been a Peter and Janet scene. You know, the Doctor is the Doctor and the companion always, to some extent, functions in the way that classic Doctor companions function. There is a great similarity. The scenes are basically the same scenes. And I was very struck by watching Colin and Nicola and thinking, yeah, that could be Peter. And of course it's Eric Sagan script editing, so it's the same team basically. So yeah, they are to a great extent interchangeable, despite the surfaces of difference, the eccentric surfaces. The character is essentially, as I say, the investigating character.
Convents. Did you say David Richardson mentioned, or maybe had entropy or something? Because season 18 that year that you get introduced is a very specific season of Doctor Who. It's got Bedmead's themes running through the whole thing. So if you're writing something in that season, you can't just go, I'm writing a story for the Doctor and that it's set then. There is a tone that year. You find yourself going, I must actually have to fit in this.
Yes, I really, actually, I didn't find it a negative thing. I really enjoyed it, and very much, I admire Bedmead's Doctor Who stuff a lot, and I think he frankly I think he was a very necessary development for the series at that time. So writing toward, what it is, it's a texture, isn't it? It's always about Doctor Who. It has if it's good, it had a texture, a feel, a particular feel that's very hard to define, but you recognise it when it's there.
A bouquet.
A bouquet, yes. It's an aroma. It has a specific aroma, and a good one. And it is thinking about, if you think about the better Doctor Who series, just off the top of my head, you think City of Death and Logopolis, very different pieces in some respects. They're both outstandingly good Doctor Who stories. What do they have in common? What is the particular texture, the aroma, yes, that makes them both work in the context of that series so well? Douglas Adams and Christopher Ridley, temperamentally very different people, and yet they're both writing stories that achieve that quality that you want in the best kind of Doctor Who story, or you did then on the old series. And so that's what I'm reaching for. I'm reaching for what I remember as a texture, as a feel, as an atmosphere of a really exciting Doctor Who story. And I wanted to write a story that if I was 15 now, I would think, yes, that's a really good Doctor Who story. That's my aim, and to get the spirit right. That's what I've been trying to do. That's what I tried to do with Watchers, to get something Bedmeadish, without just pastiching. It's very easy to fall. Lots of things you can fall into with Doctor Who, but pastiche is one of them, where it's very obvious, oh, he's been paying attention to Robert Holmes, oh, there's a bit of Eric Sagan there. That's a thing you can easily fall into with Doctor Who. And I want to avoid that kind of direct pastiche. It's just getting the feel right. And that's the challenge. But it's exciting, it's really interesting and rewarding to do. I was a bit nervous right at the beginning. Do I want to spend, basically from the first idea to the final recording day, it's 18 months. So it's a lot of time to live with it. And do I really, I was in the show for 2 years. I've written 2 novels now, that's basically 3 years. So I've now been doing Doctor Who as essentially a full-time occupation for 5 years of my life, counting the novel. Because the novels do really take over your life. Do I want to live with it for that length of time? But once the story comes, it becomes about the technical aspect of making the story work. And then it's just really interesting, exciting, how you move the characters about, how they relate to each other, how they speak to each other. It's fascinating that the actual technical aspects of structuring a decent piece of fiction is really interesting. It's hard work, but really interesting.
Now, I think they call it the script editor, even though it's a script, as it was.
They do call it a script. The novels, they call them script. I call it a novel, but yes, it's true. I think they use it.
They had a script editor.
Yes. Roland Moore. Yes.
So how hands-on is it? To what degree does it get? Does it just you write it and then, like Steve?
Outline, and there's been another shorter outline for the BBC, which has to go through an approvals process, and then I just write it. I just sit down and live with it and make the first draft, and then it goes to Roland, and Roland comes back with remarks and comments and suggestions. And again, like Steve, he's a really good editor, and he's very, his suggestions are always very good. And if I disagree with him, there's never any problem if I can tell him why I disagree or why I want to keep this particular bit the way it is. So yes, and then a bit more revising, and then maybe a couple of points more. But basically, it's fair to say that it's my work. I think Roland would say, he's not doing any heavy rewriting. It is my work.
It says by Martin.
It does say
by Martin.
It is by. There's a novelty. As opposed to a book by Tom Baker. Not by Tom Baker. But
you have 9...
No, you got paid a lot more money than me, I'm sure. You got paid a lot more money for not writing a novel than I got paid for writing a novel, which just goes to show.
On the days in the studio, how long does it take to read? 6 hours?
3 days. With 3 days.
And you have Nigel Fairs, who you mentioned.
Yeah.
No, he didn't bring his comics in.
No, disappointingly he didn't.
And he's directing.
Yes.
Now, if it's an actor reading his own works, how necessary is it for him to have it?
Oh, well, you see, that's my choice. Because actually, what you get is, as an audiobook reader, it's you and a studio manager who is listening mainly for technical things, like if you pop against the microphone, that's the sort of thing they're listening to. But I wanted somebody who's an artist, who would listen artistically and pick things up. And you're right, to be honest, I don't think Nigel would disagree with this, that he isn't saying an awful lot, because I've lived with it for a long time. I did write it, I'm reading it, I know my way about the damn thing. But it's still useful to have a creative ear, and it was really worth having him there. I want somebody who's not just, because when David Tennant's worked with the same studio manager, and Tennant just goes in and he does it, he's very skillful and very professional, whereas I really want the right to make a mistake. I want the right to try something silly that somebody says, no, that's too extreme, or that doesn't work. I want the safety net of being able to do something ridiculous, and then somebody will tell you, that doesn't work, try this instead. So for me, having an actual creative person in the room as well as the technician is really important, and does, for me, make a difference. I find it very useful. Yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I hadn't thought of it like that. And Nigel also does the sound design and music.
Yes, yes.
Now, am I right to think you don't listen to yourself?
No.
So does that mean you don't know what Nigel's sound and music is? It's like for these books.
I've heard bits of it, but I haven't heard all of it, I have to admit.
I have.
Good! Well, somebody has. Good. Did you like it?
I did.
Yes. Very good. Yes, he's very good.
I had a couple of long walks to work, and I deliberately put that on for an hour at a time. I was working. And I was going to say, irrespective of the story, which isn't the right thing to say because you wrote that as well, but on top of the story, and then a better way of putting it, it is actually just, there's something really nice about listening to you read the book. It's the same with the target books. I'm not going to say any more really exciting than it's an enjoyable experience, but it is really pleasing to walk for an hour listening to a book. It's a nice...
Read by me.
Read by... Only read by me.
And I know, it is very pleasing. I can imagine what you're way.
I listen to the target books in general as well. I enjoy listening to them. And you've read Full Circle and Fort Doomsday and The Visitation.
The Visitation, yes. Yeah, they were fun, because that's all ages ago, that's over 10 years ago now. They're old. Because that's before I started working for Big Finish, I think. Yeah, I think the Visitation, because that's what brought me into the audio thing.
Combination of doing the Dark Shadows audio.
Yes,
and
yes, because I said no to doing Doctor Who for quite a long time, about 10 years. And it was doing the Visitation and then doing the Dark Shadows that made me think, oh, we're all right, maybe I will do it. And began to do them as part of the audio series. Yeah.
So,
but they're great fun. Great. I used to read them. When I was a boy, I read them all. I stopped reading them, obviously. Once I was in it, that would have been really naff. To sit there reading a novelisation of Black Orchid a year later would have just been big time naff. But I did read them until
Peter Janet and Sarah looking across the view, sitting in the state of museum.
It's very good. This was very exciting.
Terrence did this.
Terrence did this one. Oh. Yeah, no, I did read comic books as a boy, so I was thrilled to be asked to read them, and it was great fun. It was great fun.
So how quickly after Watchers came out did you get any kind of feedback from Big Finish about what kind of feedback they're getting, or did it come straight away?
Well, no, because with Watchers, what happened was they commissioned me to write a second novel before Watchers was published, because they liked it. Big Finish genuinely really liked Watchers, and so they immediately said, "Well, you know what."
So they didn't even wait.
No, they didn't wait for it to come out.
Just like I can't remember if I knew it was commissioned before.
Yeah, it was commissioned, and I'd done the first outline and started writing it before Watchers was actually published.
And did they specifically say, well, do you want to do the other?
Yeah, they said, "Do you want to do a Fifth Doctor story?" Yes.
Like fatigue.
Yes, Prisoners of London.
Yes. But again, is that just a case of did they say, do you want to do a fifth one? Okay. And then you've got to say, well, what the hell is that about then? You've got to sit.
Yes, that's the first basic challenge with the Doctor Who story, isn't it? Where are they going to go? What kind of planet, what kind of place are they going to end up in? What period of history? Whatever it is, that's the first basic question, isn't it? With any Doctor Who story, where the hell are they going to go?
And if you're doing this, as you're describing, the doctor this, the doctor this, the doctor's parents used to say that, the doctor this, the doctor this, the doctor, they just write, and then it gets tailored by the actor, or they put bits in for them. So if you're going that faceless doctor approach, was it just as easy to start writing Peter's Doctor as it had been to write Tom's?
Yes, yes. I mean, no, to say it was easy is to glib. I mean, it is actually, as I say, it's real work. It's not that easy. But yes, it came to life. You're waiting for the ideas to come to life, and you're waiting for the characters to ignite and come alive. That's the thing you're reaching for all the time. Even a novelist like Graham Greene said sometimes, even for him, characters didn't fail to come alive. He felt that all of his novels had one character who he had not been able to bring to life. But you do the best you can to bring them to life. That's the challenge. The place they're going to go, and how are they going to react in that place, from what we know about them. They're the challenges, I guess.
So do you have a sense in your head of, well, that's done then, because I've done Tom and Andy, I've done the season 18 types. That's me done. Or if they said, actually, Matthew, do you want to do another book? Do you think you could do it again?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do more novels. Yeah, if they ask, I don't know. Because as I say, it's been 3 years. It's really a serious occupation.
It
becomes, and it's in your head all the time. It's not just, the thing about writing fiction is it's not just a matter of the time you're sitting there with your notebook or you're typing stuff up or something like that. It's in your head all the time. It's in your head while you're in the shower. I mean, the characters are moving about, and you think, well, how do I make that work? It's all the time. It's very consuming.
And would you think, I could do the E-Space team this thing?
Well, I haven't thought of that, but
or you could do the Davison era after Alex died, and we could all talk about how much they miss you.
Yes, I could do it. Yeah, actually, that would be great. Thank you for the idea.
And then, it was just like picturing Janet, and then she doesn't have to deliver the lines like that. What, I miss them, is that what it says? Or would you think about possibly doing any other deal? Would you be up for?
I don't know. If they ask, I don't know. I mean, one of the things about being the writer who reads is you do get 2 fees and 2 sets of residuals.
Well, you could still read it, but.
Well, would they let me? I mean, because with the Target books, they seem to be. Because I've said I'd love to read a John Pertwee one or a Patrick or something like that, but they tend to stick to your character. They tend to ask you to read something that your character is in. Maybe Big Finish would be more flexible. I don't know.
They have. They did that a bit because Geoffrey Beavers is some Tom books that the Masters. Because he was reading, even though they weren't master stories he was in, he's the master of their master stories. He's read a lot now. He did State of Decay. I don't know why they didn't do to do it.
He read State of Decay?
He read State of Decay.
I'm sure he did it very well.
I'm sure there must be a master story that you can steal.
Yes, I want to read Time in the Rani. Is the last one?
No, he's not. The Lanny's in that, funnily enough. Bonnie read that anyway. And she's awfully good. She's possibly even better, almost as good as you.
No, she is awfully good.
Bonnie is a fantastic.
She is. I know. She is. She's just an amazing woman all round.
Would anybody like to? I'll stay away, and get your hands there.
I'm really enjoying your biography, so pretty much what I read. So,
Thank you.
how different was that to write? Do you recall stories? Do you have to set? How was it compared to writing fiction?
The challenge is to remember and reconstruct moments. So I wrote it as scenes. I tried to write sort of as a non-fiction novel. So it's all, everything in it's true, but I did want to have the pictorial aspect of fiction, so that you're not just hearing amusing anecdotes. You're actually picturing, you imagine yourself in the rehearsal room or on the studio floor. In my own life, I'm quite a pictorial person. When I read, for my own pleasure, all the writers I really love are very pictorial writers. So imagery is very important to me. So I was trying very hard to make it as evocative, as three-dimensional as I could. So in a sense, I'm writing something that's true, but uses some of the techniques of fiction to bring it alive. Because otherwise you end up with, the danger is you don't end up with a book of chat. And I didn't want to write a book of chat. I wanted to write something that's more vivid and interesting. And even though it's true, it involves the reader in an active imagination in a certain way, by putting you in the place. So that was the challenge with Blue Box Boy.
Yeah. Oh, there's loads of hands up. Peter Davison there.
So, you talked about, like, in terms of getting voices down on the page, how easy was it for you really to actually, when performing, get voices like Janet, Tom, Sarah, and Peter, like, actually do it?
I've been around them so much in my life. It's surprisingly not that much. It's not that hard. But it's a very interesting thing with this, because nearly every Doctor Who companion can do an impersonation of their doctors. Sophie does a really good Sylvester, actually. Peter Purvis apparently does quite a good William. Fraser does Patrick. Katie does John. I can do my version of Tom. I can do Peter. Yeah, it's a really weird... I don't think it goes the other way around. I'm fairly sure that Tom Baker could do an impersonation of Andrew. But companions, for some reason, can impersonate their doctors. It's an interesting thing, but I think it only goes in that direction. But it's very common. It's a weird thing. But I think it's just because, we're so associated with them. We've been around them one way or another just for so long that somehow you just pick it up. Oh yes, I'm doing my Tom Baker. It's sort of just, and it's just sketching something. But the general sketches, you can sort of, most we Doctor companions basically do it to some degree.
The best Sylvester you'll hear is Bonnie Sylvester.
Really, is it?
She does a great Sylvester. But just talking there about, I don't know if that works the other way around, reminded me that a Big Finish Day once, you suggested an idea for, I've got 10 minutes left.
Oh, it's flying by.
Yes. I'll be the judge of that, mate. Thank you very much. Look, at Big Finish Day once, you suggested a play where the Doctor and Adric found themselves body swapped, and Tegan and Nissa found themselves body swapped. And there's a lot of fun in that, because if you think Sarah playing Tegan, and she doesn't necessarily need to be doing this, doing that, and that, because that's just what it's still coming out of Nissa. But it's, and there's a lot of fun to be had with two girls playing each other, and then obviously you've given yourself a good part there because you get to play the Doctor, and then Peter would, I'm sure, would genuinely see the gag in that there's worth to be had. Of course, nowadays Janet would go, why have the two men swapped, or why am I not playing the Doctor?
Yes, she would, yes.
I think there's really...
She can write one if she wants. If she wants to play the Doctor, she'll have to write it herself.
But I think there's a real...
Yeah, I don't know. I think it sounds quite fun. I think this mind swap thing is a bit naff, really. Actually, that sort of 1950s science fiction mind swap thing. I'm not...
There's 500
didn't happen
plays a
often,
month from Big Finish that can do a mind swap one and get away with that.
You probably could, yes. But yeah, and it's a good idea. Maybe I should think of that, yes.
Chap there.
Hi. You mentioned it took you 10 years before you were persuaded to come back and do Big Finish. What were the reasons for that? Were you wanting to sort of take a step back from Doctor Who, or?
At the time, I'll be honest, I was worried it just wouldn't be any good. It was as simple as that, because I thought the 2 years I was in it are really, really good. I mean, Peter's first year and Tom's last year, I do think are really good examples of that series, I really do. And I was worried that the audios would just be naff. to be honest. That was my general feeling. I didn't think about it all that intensely, but I just said, no, I don't think so. But it was, I just wasn't sure that they'd be worth doing.
And then there was the Dark Shadows script.
And then the Dark Shadows script that Simon Guerrier wrote, actually, The Creeping Fog, which is the two-hander with me and David Selby. I really thought this is very good. This is a really, really nice Gothic script. The dialogue's good, it's well written. Simon could really write for actors. And so that was the change. It was, some of these people could actually write for actors. They actually write well. And that was the difference. And then I thought, yeah, all right, well, maybe I'll do it.
And really did pull the stops out for you had John Donnelly and Jonathan Morris for that box end. But the two of them both came up with a fantastic idea behind the story and a fantastic story for the Boring Floating. So they really gave you something great.
They did, yes, I was very pleased.
And then strong trilogies as well. They seem to be pulling the stops out for the four years. Something I thought they were the best placed guy year each time. I thought that was the best batch for the year. So you've had some awfully good stuff. Jenny, did I see?
And the E-Space stuff.
Oh yes, this you did it Tom and Marlon, yes.
I thought they were very good. Andrew Smith wrote one, and Mark Platt wrote an excellent one.
Chess. And come to the various people. I've still, just last week, a bit before the event, and Tom and Lana and Matthew and John have done, did they have 4 separate studios? And I was like, no, Matthew went and worked with them. You were there with Tom, you were there with Lana. What thing away like 35 years ago that was then hadn't passed. Jenny, I saw you then.
I saw you on the panel with Katie Manning, so I just wondered if you'd like to work with her.
I'd love to work with Katie Manning, and she wants to work with me. We keep saying this. Every time I see her, we say we've got to do something together. Yeah, no, I'm a big enthusiast for Katie, and I'm a big enthusiast for working with her. I'd love to work with her. I know she feels the same way. I'd love, lots of them I love Louise. Louise and I are quite good friends. I'd love to. I've never actually acted with Louise. I know her, but I've never acted with her. I'd love to act with her. I'd love to act with Sophie and Bonnie. I mean, they're lovely. They're lovely actors. I would really be very happy to work with any of them. But it is just the thing of it gets a bit. You can overdo. It's difficult moving characters around from one era to another and having a meeting. You can do it in Doctor Who. You don't want to overdo it. I think. But in theory, I would work with any of them, either in Doctor Who or in another context. I'm game to do it anyway. But yes, Katie certainly. I'd love to work with Katie. She's great.
And obviously, you've never worked with Mark Slickson because
I've never worked with Mark Slickson. Again, he's a great guy. He's a terrific actor, and I'd love to work with him. He's great.
Yeah.
Did you do your Tom Baker and Peter impressions?
I don't have a script. I need a script. You see, I'm an actor. I have to have a script. Romana. I think we're trapped in the Kronos in plastic infant. It's a sort of little bit of a Tom. And well, Peter's all breathy, isn't it? I think we're trapped in the Kronos in plastic infantibulum. Yes, we're going to Tegan, Patrick, got to get out of here quickly. I think we'll be doomed. That's all I think.
I think, having listened to both books, I think the Fourth Doctor one is perhaps more steered by a Tom impression of one.
Yes.
Whereas Peter is actually, I think, is quite led by the dialogue, as opposed to being, I can do this voice, but Peter thing is led by, this is a fast bit, so Peter will do it like this.
Yes.
I think it's more led by the moment and the
yes.
book. Does anybody else want to ask anything? Oh, yes.
During your CD run, do you have a personal favourite story? And if so, why? Which one is it?
I get asked that quite often. I tend to have different answers on different days. Because I like nearly all of them. I've got reservations about 40 Doomsday. I don't mind 40 Doomsday, actually. I just don't like the writing for Adric in 40 Doomsday. I don't otherwise think it's a disaster. I just don't like the way he's written. But apart from that, I sort of like them all. But I'm very fond of State of Decay. Because, if you are of the generation who watched Doctor Who as a child, Terence Dicks is a big deal. It was a big deal in Doctor Who, because I read his novels and everything. And it was the first, because we did them out of order, it was the first one I did. So, you know, you put in Doctor Who and the first script of Anthony and Matters by Terence Dicks, it doesn't really get better than that. That's just the real thing, isn't it? So I thought that was, and I love, and also I like Hammer horror stuff anyway. I used to, you know, I used to read a comic called House of Hammer and all those things again in my teens. And I liked Hammer horror films. And I've still got like Hammer horror Blu-rays that get dug out around Halloween and everything. So that vibe I like. And so I'll say Station K, but a lot of them are. I've just watched, for a new DVD comic, I just watched Warrior's Gate with Stephen Gallagher. It's coming out as a gift, a free gift with a new comic.
And the people are here.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, are they? Has it actually been published yet?
I don't know if that one's I can't remember. Somebody remind me what they're called, those people that... They're here, they've got a stall here,
oh,
so
right.
It may be available now. I don't know if it's out yet or not.
But yes, I haven't seen Warrior's Gate in forever, and it was really interesting to watch. I was really impressed by it.
Because they always play to show you Earthshock. And they
yes,
take you to something and
always
say, here's Earthshock. And it was like, there are other stories. We're going to do Kinder next time.
Yeah, let's do Kinder. Yeah. But so I love that. So Keeper Travel's great. The Goblins is an extraordinary thing. Castro Alvarez. I mean, it's actually the standard of those seasons is just really high. It really is.
And I would commend you on your good taste in not being in either Meadows or Time Flight much.
Yes, I did get the good fortune of not being in Time Flight for very long. Oh dear. Yes, that was an oddity, wasn't it? Oh, you couldn't make.
I'm going to try. I've got two hands. I'm going to try and squeeze them both in, and I can't think anymore because Chris is hovering. So
it's probably like an odd question, but like, what was it like working with a couple on set?
Working with that couple on set. Oh my God! It was not very easy at all. They weren't getting along at all. It was rowy and awful a lot of the time. Sometimes it was delightful when they were getting along and he was in a good mood. But a lot of the time he wasn't. And I mean, when they got married, Peter Moffat, the director, telephoned them and said, "Don't do it. It's going to be a disaster." Which it was. I mean, what can you say? I mean, I know people who watch Secret Death have a sort of flowers and snobs idea of their affair, but when I was in it, there weren't many flowers going out. It just wasn't good. I mean, I'd love to be jolly and upbeat about it, but 40 years later, you sort of give up. You know, it was difficult. But they both admitted it. They both said this themselves. It's not a secret. But it'd be lovely if they were a sunny, happy, jolly couple having fun. But it really wasn't. It wasn't.
Isn't that this story about like, well, why don't you help Lala down from that ladder? And they said, well, she's not a bloody couple. And then in the afternoon, they were speaking again. So it's, why don't I help them down?
Well, I do think. I mean, you know, people. I know people get a sort of camp enjoyment from the fact you can tell what mood Tom was in that day, or whether they're getting along or not. But you really shouldn't be able, you really shouldn't actually be able to say, oh my, they've just had a row. Look, you really shouldn't be able
to anywhere other than then.
I mean, really, it's. I know it's amusing in a way and a laugh, but really, you shouldn't be able to tell. And you can. It's silly.
Gene, when you do your...
You say in your writing, and sometimes read out again your scripts, do you ever find your writer and your actor in conflict over what you're writing? That you as a writer think, actually this is good, but then when you read it out as an actor, feel uncomfortable as an actor with something you're writing?
Yeah, well certainly when I speak it, that might affect the rhythm. I might have written the sentence too long, that you basically have to hold your breath for 5 minutes to speak. So yeah, to that extent, yes, actually the speaking of it definitely affects the actual rhythms of the text. Definitely does. Yes, to that extent. But I don't think particularly with Adric and Nissa, I don't think I've written anything for the two children that Sarah and I couldn't have acted it. Obviously now we could. Could we have acted it then? Because some of the stuff in Prison of London between the two of them is actually quite intense. Because they've been kidnapped and it's awful hot in the middle of a desert. And it's quite but I think we could have acted those scenes. With a good director at least, but I think we were capable of playing the scenes I've written. So to that extent, I think I'm writing towards things that we were able to do even as very young actors. Sarah's a good actor, and of course she's really good at audio. And so I think most of the stuff I write, written is stuff that I think I'm capable of playing.
So you're all going to go out now and buy Watchers and Prisons of London, aren't you? Say yes anyway.
Yes.
Just go, no. Right, I have one last thing to ask you, then we're going to leave the stage. Right. I think the Doctor's wrong at the end of their shot because you don't. It's not as if there's a camera in the room. The Doctor doesn't see Adric, literally. So there's nothing to stop us from finding out that someone appeared and took him away. And the Doctor materialised the TARDIS, saved them, and Adric went off and had lots of lovely adventures with another Doctor who came initially. So the police box arrives, Adric gets in it. What Doctor do you want it to be?
Shoot, you get one. That's what we're out.
I'm not going to put them on the telly, love, don't I?
But no, actually I kind of have reservations about anything like that because I think it's too, I think if a character dies, you have to respect that. I have some. Joe Lidster wrote a brilliant story actually about an adult Adric for Big Finish. I've got a full life, which if you haven't heard, again, it's less than a kind of
It's £1.99 or something like that.
£1.89,
something like that.
Darling, you can't get much for that.
And it's a one-man play, basically.
It's a one-man play, yes. It's really beautiful and really touching and sweet. But of course, Joe does have to undo it.
Yes.
I think undoing things irritates me as well because it gets lazy. But in that case, he had no choice. Once you have the idea of that, you kind of have to.
And that's the story that you know straight away that something's wrong. It's not one of those sort of, they tell the entire thing and then they say, oh, and it was all a dream, or oh, we've undone it all. You know from the word go, well, this is wrong, so it's going to have to get fixed.
Yeah. But it's quite a move. Joe's a very good writer of character, and people find it quite moving.
It's a
story. It's a very good piece.
I'll tell you what else is quite wrong, the fact that we're still on stage.
Oh dear, it's a crossover.
I can stand and listen to you forever, I mean,
well, why not then?
Will you please thank, in this instance, the writer and actor, Matthew Waterhouse.